Hi, and welcome to the Divinely Inspired Woman podcast. I am your host, Patricia Wald-Hopkins. I am a modern mystic, and I am here to share with you the beautiful wisdom and stories from women that desire to lead their lives inspired by the divine within them. The divinely inspired woman is devoted to walking the path of her soul's calling, tuning into the divinity within to navigate life with ease and grace through all circumstances. She cultivates beauty in her daily life. She is here to share the most authentic self each day through thick and thin. So I hope you'll enjoy our show today and that you will leave with an infusion of inspiration for your soul and for your day and living your life. All right. Hello, and welcome to the Divinely Inspired Woman podcast. My name is Patricia. Yeah. Hi, Bethany. And
Hi.
I'm so glad to have you here as a guest. I just want for us to have a conversation today about what has divinely inspired you on your path. And I know that you are a human design expert and an embodiment expert embodiment guide. And so tell me a little bit about that and a little bit about how you got there.
I mean, the journey itself is just so, I would have never expected it to be, me to be a human design, especially human design expert. But I mean, the reason embodiment is kind of like the pillar the rest falls around is I've been through a lot of journeys throughout. I tie my business to my spiritual evolution. As soon as I started to seek more in my business, more money, more whatever, it was like, oh, actually, it's not about the money piece. It was like, okay. And I was taken on this huge journey of self-evolution. So as I went through that, I'm very masculine in my chart naturally. Like my human design reads very masculine, very structured. And with that, not understanding myself, not being embodied in the past, I was very burnt out. I was overdoing. I was really not able to create any space to receive. So it was like my worth was so deeply attached to how much I do. So as I started to navigate this journey, and I actually ended up having a 1-year kind of sit down moment through a motorbike accident I had where the universe literally just was like, you will not be in your feminine. So we are putting you in your feminine, right? And like, you're not listening to your body. So we're putting you in your body.
Yeah.
And that was when I started to look into embodiment work. And it started actually with neurolinguistics, like subconscious reprogramming, because the way that I navigate things is I really believe in the core fundamentals, like the basics. If we don't have the awareness, how is anything else going to drop in? How are we going to navigate anything else? So focusing on that, I started to become aware of where in my body I was not tapped in, not tuned in. And then that's how human design found me, because then it was like, okay, here's the roadmap to understanding your body. Now you can work with that, become more embodied, and show others how to do the same.
Beautiful. Yeah. So I'm a fan of human design as a Gene Keys person, a guide and ambassador. So I know it came out of that, but I was first introduced to human design probably, I don't know, about 7 years ago, or maybe even 8 years ago. And someone did a reading for me, but they didn't take me into my body. So tell me how, they told me all these things, but it was all intellectual. And it was probably because where I was at, right? Yeah. At that time, I only took it in an intellectual level. So how do you bring it into people's, bodies? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, thank you for voicing that, actually, because it's something that's been coming up a lot. Even my roommate said to me recently, I had a reading and she just spoke at me, and she was like, it all stayed in my mind, and it was like, you're this, you're that. And this is one of the core themes of like, information is information until it's activated, until it's integrated and it's taken within. Otherwise and it was the same for me. 3 years it was just here until it wasn't. So what I do with my reading specifically is I will have notes. So I break down your chart, you get the notes, it's there, right? There's the logical. But then being intuitive as well, I find that as we go in, I kind of give the stage to the person receiving the reading, and I say to them, I'm going to speak and I'm going to explain, but if there's anything you already understand, tell me to skip. If there's anything that drops in for you, so if you want to relate that to your family or your business, or something comes in, interrupt me, because I'm going to keep going. I have a defined throat. I'm going to keep going. Cut me off. Give me your download. Then we'll go with that, right? So then we integrate it as in, I want to know why you're here asking for the reading, because it's not just about human design. It's about, what are you trying to seek through this? Let's focus on that. And then sometimes we end up having like this deep intuitive chat. I'll come out with things and they're like, what? So I really try to relate it to the person and their experience, rather than like, you're this, you're that, you're this, because then, like you said, it stays intellectual. When it's embodied of, I see it through the lens of my own perspective now, it becomes embodied. And this is how like they start to actually implement it and live it, rather than just, I had a reading and I'm still kind of no further than I was before, right?
Or terrified.
Yeah, because there's so much information. It's like, where do I start? So this is also the piece, like basic fundamentals. Lock down these pieces. I've given you the rest, but focus here. Because as humans, we want to know it all, right? We want to do all this stuff now. Yeah.
Because it's a lot of, it's beautiful information, and I'm just relating it back to my experience is from my first one, because I've had many, but the words I remember was, you have difficulty in the beginning. And I thought, ew. Right, because I have the three. I have the three, the three in my gene keys and my radiance. So it's chaos, right? Chaos to innocence through innovation. But that's all I got. I just remember I was like, oh, great. I'm just going to have trouble in the beginning all the time. And so tell me a little bit about when you first learned about your human design. What was your journey with them? Was that how you were divinely inspired by?
Yeah, this is actually to do with the motorbike accident I had. So I found it about 4 years ago. I was actually I was on a call with a guest speaker, and I remember being just like, wow, she has so much knowledge. Like, what is this? And I was never very drawn to astrology. Like, I know it, but I don't know it like I know human design. So it really triggered something within me. I bought a blueprint, but no reading. And this blueprint was kind of just, again, it was logical textbook information. And I was kind of like, okay, well, there's a lot here. I don't understand it. I should have maybe got a reading, but I didn't at the time because I didn't prioritize it, right? It just wasn't a priority. So then fast forward, it was kind of dipping in and out, like people would mention it, now I know that the universe was like, hey, like this is for you. And then when I was in the hospital, I just had another download for it to pull it up. So I pulled my chart up, and I have the video of me putting it on my story, like, wow, human design found me again. And it was my centers. So for anyone that doesn't know human design, the centers piece is where you can see where you may be conditioned by the external world, or where you may influence or be an outer authority. So I saw that my spleen was open, so I could be conditioned, which is like well-being, intuition, fears, immune system. The hospital was telling me one thing, my intuition was telling me another thing, but I was letting the hospital win. I couldn't find this infection that they kept telling me was there, but they couldn't read it on reports. Like, it just wasn't showing up on anything. But I was like losing my power. I was giving my power away. So then when I realized this, I basically took back my power and told them, like, this is how it's going to go. And I healed myself.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So I was like, okay, like, this is a core piece in my experience. It's my medicine. I want other people to be able to have this experience. And that was actually how it really started, where I was like, this needs to be shared, like, far and wide, you know?
Yeah, that's profound. I mean, for me, with a person who I have only three defined centers. So yeah,
Right.
so,
Quite open.
I'm wide open, right? And I think like for the head, you know, the ajna, and when I'm around certain collective energies, it's really become important for me to know that, so that when I walk away from that collective energy, I'm like, that's not mine. That is so not mine. Does that make sense? Because I mean, I'm not a human design expert. I just have, you know, had readings and know enough to get myself in trouble, probably. No, I know the basics, but so for people, when they have open centers, what you're sharing is that that sounds like almost a doorway or a key to your health in many ways, right? Is that? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
each center carries a theme. So I always explain it in the analogy of like a crystal shop. So each of your centers is a crystal shop. Crystals absorb energy.
Oh, I love that.
So if you're open, people can come in and infuse your crystals in that theme. So like head is like doubt, confusion, questions. Ajna is like conceptualization, opinions. So you have crystals in all these shops. If you're defined, you kind of have security up and you're the one going into other people. Where if you're open, people can come in. So it's about having that security of like, oh, okay, I'll keep that because that's empowering. But that one, that's not mine. It gets to go. You know?
Like that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is how I explain it, you know, in my readings in ways that we can understand, rather than this is your conditioning, this is where you're defined, and you're like, what the hell does define even mean? You know, like, it's so overwhelming when it's like, how do we simplify? My life's work in my design is to simplify, to make people's lives simpler. So this is how I approach it.
I like that. I like the crystal shop, especially.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
I love crystals. So.
Right, everybody's like, I get that.
Who doesn't love them, right? Yeah. So okay. So let's go a little bit deeper here, and I'm just going with the flow of what's coming through the field about this. So if you have a crystal shop and your throat is defined, like you said, yours is, what does that mean about the message that you're sharing with?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have an open head, but I have a defined ajna, I have a defined throat, I have a defined G, I have a defined sacral and roots. All the way down my middle. I'm very grounded and connected. Then I have solar plexus defined, but I'm open in my spleen and my heart. So I'm connected all the way through. So my sacral life force there's usually no kind of break in the circuit and this is why I like doing podcasts, because when I speak, it comes through, my life force just presents itself. Right. It's very in the now, and that's how I communicate. But for me and clients, for example, I will always run connection charts, or friends, because I'm very connected here. So I can be a positive influence, but also I don't want to create attachment between my clients where they feel like they can only be empowered when with me. So I look at where I bridge them, and then I can be an empowering, so I can go into their shop. So say the ajna is, you know, conceptualization, opinions, new insight, right? I can give them and gift them my fixed insight, because my way of speaking is always, usually you're going to get the same kind of approach from me. So they know what to expect. So I'll gift them that insight, but I also do it in a way that it's not like I am in control. And it's like, this is why I don't like the word coach. I like the word guide, because I'm like, here it is, but take or leave it. You know,
Yeah.
you don't need to fully identify with it, but if it helps, great. If it doesn't, fine. Right? So it's really, when you're defined, you can be that authority, but it's becoming aware of, am I being pushy with the authority, and am I expecting everybody to take it, or am I giving it as a gift with no expectation of whether it's going to be used or not?
It's a great approach. Yeah. So it's the take what resonates and let the rest
Yeah.
go back.
Yeah.
Go back to source.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. What is your favorite part of this, has been your favorite part of this journey with human design? I mean, what is your biggest celebration from it?
I mean, I guess just seeing people light up. Like I've facilitated maybe over 60 readings now, and I only started doing readings in December, so it's beautiful to see the universe has really started putting these forward for me. And I find just everybody that I get to exchange energy with, because even for me, it's a learning experience. You know, they book the reading, but even with, I'm learning about so many different types of person, and I'm starting to piece together correlations, and it's like a discovery process every time I bring in a new person. So it's seeing them light up, because also a lot of the time it's really just remembrance of, I've always known this about myself, but I thought this was a fault. I thought this was like something that was wrong with me. And it's like, I'm giving them the permission to be themselves again.
To be themselves.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And I have the channel Keeper of Keys, which is 2 to 14, which is like, I don't know which key to which door until somebody comes knocking and says, hey, like, I need the key to this door. And then and sometimes it's not even about human design in the end. It's some breakthrough that they had to have, that figuring out their chart gave them. And now they're like, oh my goodness. You know, I've had people like go offline for 5 days after my readings, and I'm like, oh my God, is something wrong? And then they've restructured their whole strategy, and like now they're coming back and they're like, it feels so much better. And I'm like, oh, you know,
that's awesome.
So it's just beautiful seeing the shifts it brings, because it really does. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's very, very, once you delve into those, the circuits and the channels and all of that, it's fascinating. It's really, really is fascinating. So let's see, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, just to give our audience a little feel for your divinely inspired life. Do you look at your chart like every day? I mean, how do you stay inspired every day?
So no, I don't look at it every day. At the beginning, I was quite into it. What I find now is I've implemented my strategy and authority, like the basic principles, because this is also it. There's so much, but strategy and authority is where we start, because if we're really living by that, the rest will drop in naturally. So then we can start navigating. So for me, it's really about making sure I'm honoring my certain elements of my chart every single day with decisions I'm making, you know, with how I'm navigating, with really understanding and navigating from my body. And if I need that refresher, then I'll pop back into my chart and I'll look at my channels and I'll reread things over and over. But other than that, I pretty much flow with it and I let it drop back in for me. Like yesterday, for example, I'm at breakfast working, it pops up in conversation with my friends. We're pulling the charts up, we're running connection charts, and I'll learn something new. So I really just let it come into me, because I'm a man gen, so manifesting generator, I wait to respond. So I wait to respond to there's new information to learn.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm a manifesting generator.
I like it. I'm really happy I'm a manifesting generator.
I am too. You know what I love about that, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, but once I found more, about that more, I was like, well, yeah, I'm a multi-passionate being, right? I and extreme, creativity just that feeds my soul.
Absolutely.
And so that was really one of those things I thought when people told me, well, you have ADHD, and I'm like, no, no, I have a lot of things that I like to do.
Absolutely.
So that, I think, if you had to tell somebody who is, maybe a beginner with human design, what would be your wisdom, a little bit of wisdom to share with them as they approach this?
Definitely start with the basics, because again, there's a lot. So if you go to Google, you're going to get information on every aspect. So you're really not going to know where to start. So it's starting with the basics. So strategy, authority, and your type. Learn about those three, and then start moving again. Because when we try and dip into all the different things, it's not going to work. I always say it's like trying to tie a shoelace, but you don't know what a shoe is. So how, So really focusing in, because it's an experiment, and it's a long experiment, and it's a lived experience. So it's not going to just be, I know my design, it's something that you have to commit to, like fitness almost, right? So starting off with the basics, don't overwhelm yourself. Get a reading, because also that is something where someone can really lay it out for you so that you understand, and then enjoy it. Like, it's not supposed to be another dogma or like a religion that you attach to. It really is here to empower you rather than stress you out, and you feel like you have to like achieve all of these like tick boxes,
Yeah, right. That's the old way.
Yeah.
The old way is to check the boxes, where this one is more of it's just like a daily, dose of exercise, like you said, or a vitamin or something, right? That just keeps you going and lit up. And I there was a question I had for you about that. Let's see if it comes back to me as you were talking, which was interesting. My throat's defined, right? Yeah. I started to get this tickle in my throat. So I'm like, okay, what is, for me, like that, do you get that feeling when you're working like the embodiment, like you actually feel like things moving? I love that.
Yeah. And it's great.
Clearing something out of my throat right now.
Great. Love that. I love that. That's right? Excellent news.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that was my question for you, working with people or even with yourself. Do you tune into different parts of your body as you're working with a key, or a channel circuit?
I like the transits for that. Like, I'll always find that with the gene key transits, there's always a theme for me to dive deep. Or I'll read the transit and I'm like, of course, like, this is why this is happening, right? So I do focus mainly on the transits and what's happening in those, because then I can be like, okay, this is the current theme. This is what I'm going to see a lot. This is what I can also talk to, through the collective. Because if I'm going through it, chances are it's a collective thing, right? So that's how usually I tune in, of like, okay, what's going on with us, with everyone, but also like, how am I feeling about it? What maybe do I need to check up on? Or I'll look at my centers and the themes. So it's like, okay, well, if I'm experiencing a lot of doubt right now, what's going on in my head center? Like, where are my gates? Is there any transits that are affecting these gates? Like, what are these themes? Maybe I'll focus on that, and I'll do a little bit of journaling or whatever on that.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. That sounds, it sounds a lot very similar to, working with the gene keys, on a daily kind of a basis, or when things come up. What I like about the human design part is that you have that, that body graph to look at, right? Like, so you can see, and I often forget to, so you're reminding me, like, to remember where my keys are in my body. Right. Like, and if they have a connection, if I have a complete connection or not. I think I often forget to come back to my body graph. Have you, I don't know why I'm going to ask you this, but I'm going to, do you feel like, because you were clearing my throat, right? Do you feel like you have like a healing energy about you when you work with people?
Oh yeah. Like, I actually had an energy healing a few weeks ago, and she was very somatic healing, so hands-on, but also medium, psychic, like clairvoyant. She had it all. And at the end, well, at the beginning, she asked me, she was like, why are you here? And I was like, well, I'm first off, I want to clear my energy, but second, I'm curious. And she was like, okay, why are you curious? And then at the end, we had a chat, and I said, well, what I find with myself, and I've had this since being a kid, like I've always been able to recognize either if somebody's been through pain, or if there's something happening, or like even with friends, they'll be in relationships and I'll know that it's not like their person, you know, and I'll know that it's going to be more of a lesson and a teacher than a longer term. So I know these things, and I said to her, like, you know, in my readings, a lot of the time things come through that are not even, I'll be going and going and going, and then I'll say something and this person hasn't told me that, right? And at the beginning, it was me holding back, because it was like, who am I to tell them this thing that they've not mentioned that might not be true? But I'm starting more and more to open myself to that. And we discussed that. And she said, you know, human design is also it is a masculine system. So it's something for you to build from. And then once you start to recognize with this information that's, you know, logical, it's given, that actually it's you that's facilitating, you'll start to move into the intuitive process, right? So I do have offers that are just me, where it's like people get on a call and they ask for my insight, you know? So absolutely, yeah, it's a very intuitive. I feel I'm quite clairsentient, like I feel rather than I see, and it just drops in, and I'm trusting more and more to go with that rather than to hold it back, you know?
Yeah, because I definitely sense that about you, and I worked with a lot of different kinds of people with, you know, that are using their different intuitive gifts. So it's definitely something coming through.
And it's like sometimes you want to be farther along. It's like, oh, but I want to see, like I want to, you know. And I've had a few regressions, past life regressions, and in all of them, I'm like an oracle, a witch. But in all of them, I've been like burned or hurt because I've overused, right? Me too. I've overused my power. Like I've gone fast with it, and I've wanted more, and I've tried to go further. So in this life, my regressionist was like, go at the pace that the universe is giving you, you know, like don't try and do too much, go into too much, let it unfold. So this is what I'm doing right now. I'm like, okay, when it drops in, like we're not gonna force.
Well, and so like when I, you know, asked you, you know, to be a guest, I mean, I was just like, I just, it felt like a natural, like I just need to ask this woman to come and talk. And I, you know, I always wonder, I don't like to know ahead of time, but I would certainly be really cool to see where our different keys, you know, where they lie. And
absolutely.
And I always like to do that with people that you just sort of know you have a connection with, like, you know, in the Gene Keys, the codon families, right? And you never like, oh, you're in the ring of Gaia, or, oh, you know, the ring of divinity. And it's really a cool way, like a high level confirmation. I think these kinds of tools are for what you already know intuitively. Does that feel true to you? Like
absolutely. It's like that building block that you can take from and reflect with. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you start to strengthen that trust in what you already know, right? Your intuition. And then it's like these kind of guide you along the way. That's a beautiful process, I think, when people can balance using that intuitive and then, you know, the more structural, visual, see it, you know, all laid out for you kind of techniques. But what is for human design, what is your favorite part about it?
Just the discovery process and like the coming back to self. Like it really has been the catalyst for me to understand my unique gifts and bring them further online. So it really is just the discovery process. Like I'm learning something new all the time with everything I do. And again, like this, it's allowing me to be me. It's giving me the permission slip to be me, which is then bringing further online all the parts of me that I've suppressed, you know? So definitely that, just the experiment itself.
Yeah. Well, I can definitely see, I've seen, your post, where I've seen you on Instagram. I mean, it's very lit up. It's like, yeah, she's having a good time doing it. She's doing it. And it's, it just feels really, crystal clear. So it's,
Thank you for that reflection.
Yeah, it's lovely. So we're coming to the end of our time together tonight. Well, it's morning for you. Is there, I have two things left. One, at the end, I want you to share where people can connect with you or find out, more about your work. But what is one thing you would like to leave, one little pearl of wisdom that you would like to leave for people that are on this path of being divinely inspired?
Yeah. Honestly, it's the pace thing, like we always want to be further ahead. And I'm really coming back to core fundamentals at the moment. Like I'm relearning a lot of stuff I learned right at the beginning, like law of attraction kind of stuff, mental awareness stuff. I'm going way back into that. And it's like, we want to skip steps. We want to be the high earner but really scaling it back. It's not about the money it's about the wanting to connect with yourself and live that embodied life, right? So take your time, like savor the moments, like when the first intuitive drop comes online, like wow, rather than more. So that's definitely been my theme of like, just take it at the pace that it's coming, but also take what you need from things and leave the rest. Like you don't need to have it all. And you're not supposed to have it all. And also you're not supposed to be the same. You may be inspired by what you're hearing today. That doesn't mean you have to follow the exact same path. It's like, take what you need and then add it to your kind of expansion library and then go with it,
that is so refreshing. That is really refreshing to hear because, the old way is take, like it's like a scarcity mindset, right? Like if you don't take it now, you're gonna lose,
right.
You're gonna lose it. And now it's not that anymore. It's like you're gonna get what you need, right? You're gonna get what you need, and that's perfect. So that's beautiful. That's a beautiful pearl of wisdom. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how can people connect with you?
I would say Instagram is my main platform. So that's pretty much where you can find all my offers. Again, I literally just say to people or anyone that I'm on podcast with is that I have a link in my bio. You can check out my offers throughout all my pages. You'll see, but the link in my bio gives you, one-to-one sessions where it's more of intuitive based. I've got human design offers. I have like 4 different offers. Have a look. See what your intuition draws you to, rather than me being like, I have this. I just open the space of you can click the link in my bio and see what you're drawn to, because everybody's different. So
yeah. And it lets that manifesting generator in you have options.
Right. Like,
have variety. Yeah. And what is your handle on Instagram?
It's BEE.embodied. So like be embodied with a dot in the middle, but double E for the B.
Double B. Okay, great. And I'll have that in the
Sure.
in the description for this episode. But thank you so much. It's really been lovely talking with you. And
absolutely. Thank you right back.
Yeah. Have a beautiful rest of your day. And I hope we can keep in touch.
Absolutely.
Goodbye, everybody. Until next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Divinely Inspired Woman. Again, I am your host, Patricia Wald Hopkins, and I am so glad that you joined us here today. I hope you left with some soul food to inspire your daily life. And if you would like to learn more about my work, please check out my website, patriciawaldhopkins.com, and you can find out more about my divinely inspired practice and tools. So, thank you again. Have a beautiful day.